So, hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew. I work with the Telco Credit Union. I'm a community engagement specialist. So it's my job to go out into the community and engage. That can be, me going to festivals and community events and things like that and trying to talk about the Telco Credit Union, as well as doing a lot of financial education, which is what I am here to do today. So thank you guys all for spending your Thursday afternoon with me. If you have any questions throughout any of this, please just raise your hand. I'd rather make sure that your question gets answered while we're here. So if we don't get through everything on here, that's fine. I want to make sure if you have questions, we can get taken care of. Today, we are going over the second part of our 5 days budgeting and saving like a boss. So we're gonna go over how to create a budget, what a budget is, tips and tricks to make a budget, especially for those of you who are students, which is all of you guys who have a student, lifestyle. We're also gonna go over some savings, tips, tricks, strategies, and things like that that are all gonna be practical for what you guys are going through. So yeah, intro to budgeting today. We're gonna cover needs versus wants and kind of how I like to look at it on the spectrum. We're gonna go over creating a budget, ways to track your expenses, smart planning. So when it comes to saving, how we can save the smart way, SMART. We're gonna go over some saving strategies, and if we have time at the end, we have some resources at the Telco that can hopefully help you guys out, and I will tell you guys about those. And of course, if you have questions, let me know throughout the presentation. All right, so a budget is just a spending plan for you and your income and your expenses. It's basically a quote is a budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. It's like a roadmap for your money. So every month dollar that goes into your account, you have a place and a plan for where that's gonna go. Even if you are in a position where you don't have a lot of monthly bills, maybe you're not making a lot of money and can't afford to put a lot away right now. Even if you cannot afford or you're not in a place to save even like $1, you still want to know where your dollars go. And that is why having a budget is important. So there's no such thing as not having enough money to have a budget. Always a good idea to have one set up for yourself. Creating and sticking with a budget allows you to, number one, be conscious of your spending because you have a plan for where your money's coming and going. So you're much more mindful about how you spend your money. It allows you to avoid debt because again, things that fall in your budget are gonna be things like bills and necessities and rent and things like that. To where if you don't have a budget and you're not actually allocating funds for those purposes, you can potentially go into debt to get those bills covered. Build wealth, be prepared for emergencies. These are, savings goals that you might set up for yourself that can be a part of any budget. Plan for future goals. If you have any kind of long-term plan or something that you want to accomplish, having a budget for that is very, very crucial. And then last but not least, spend money on wants. I am of the belief that every budget should include fun money. I don't think that life is really worth living if we're not enjoying it. So we just want to make sure that we have a budget. Thank you very much. That we have a budget that, has all of our needs met, all of our goals tended to, so that we know what we have to spend on wants and we know we can do it responsibly and stress-free. So speaking of wants and speaking of the fun things, a lot of people like to talk about needs versus wants in like a column. So needs being, food, shelter, whatever, wants being fun, frivolous stuff. I don't think it's quite as black and white as this. So this is how I kind of structure my needs versus wants. More as a pyramid, whereas like the fundamental things that you absolutely need are at the bottom and the most frivolous things are at the top. And then you can kind of allocate how much money goes into each category or each tier of the pyramid. So for me, and I think for all of us, bottom of the pyramid is going to be food, shelter, clothing, just the like essentials that you need to be a human and keep your, heart beating. That's like base level. You want to make sure those things are first and foremost covered. Next, a little bit less essential, but still very, very essential to be, a functioning, contributing member of society. We're looking at communication, transportation, being able to get from point A to point B, being able to contact your family, your boss if you need to, whatever it is. These are also things that are like societal needs. They're just not needs to keep yourself alive. For me, the next one up is like hobbies and creative passions. So I like to paint, I like to hike. I like to do a lot of outdoorsy stuff. Anything like that is something that I feel like I need for my, you know, mental health. So if you hear me say like, oh, I need to get more paint, or I need to buy a new pair of hiking boots, or whatever it may be, I don't need that in the same way that I need like water and oxygen, obviously, but I do need it more than I need, exactly, more than I need to go to, you know, Target and spend $100 on a whim. It's still something that fulfills, you know, an internal need for me. Entertainment, eating out, and vacations, this is the next tier up. I still think that money does need to be allocated for this, because these are good mental health needs, depending on what you like. I really like my music, I like to go out and do things, with, ooh. This thing, don't forget, a smart device. We're gonna ignore it. But yeah, I like to go out and go to concerts, like to go to live shows, I like to do any kind of stimulation activity. So I have that in my budget as well. I have a little like, you know, fun savings account that I put aside for myself. And then last, the probably least essential thing, the smallest need in the category is gonna be impulse buys. We're gonna talk a little bit about impulse purchase later. If you take one thing away from today, it is, I hope you guys can leave here being a little bit more conscious or cognizant of when you make impulse purchases. That could be me projecting, because I used to be very bad at making impulse purchases. So I don't know how all you guys are, I don't want to assume your spending habits, but if that does ring true for you, hopefully I can give you guys some tips to curb those, or at least, you know, try to be mindful about it.
Yeah, what kind of things are impulse purchases?
Impulse buys are just like if you're out of the store and you see something and it was never something that you had planned on buying or you thought of,
Oh,
and you just buy it right there without thinking about
it's
it.
just something that you want.
Yeah, an impulsive purchase, something that you don't think about, but that you spend money on, you know, right away.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah, going out and just shopping at a store, things like that, lead yourself to impulse buys.
Can the top three pieces of the payment kind of be interchangeable?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you are not someone whose hobbies or things like that require a lot of money, then allocate more to what's more important to you. It's just, this is kind of just a way for you, and you don't have to do it in a pyramid like this at all. This is a way for you to kind of rank what you value the most versus the least. This is what it looks like for me, but it's gonna look different from anybody else. It could also be different things in these categories, you know, who knows? All right. There we go. Creating a budget, thank you, Sarah. So. How do you create a budget now? We know we need a budget, how do we do it? Has anybody heard of pay yourself first? Anyone say pay yourself first? So for me, the first time I heard that, it didn't make sense to me, because I just thought like, obviously, I pay myself, like I get paid, it's my money, it's in my account, I'm paying myself first. What pay yourself first really means, and kind of how I think the base quality for any budget is, you take your disposable income, so the money that you have after your bills are paid, after your housing is paid, whatever. You subtract your savings and your investing, so that is you paying yourself, you're paying your future self before you pay your current self. So whatever your goals are, after you have your disposable income, take those out, whatever you have left over, that is your spending money to go crazy with. So like for me, the way that I budget on like a day-to-day, and this is a blanket statement, but I get paid every, or 2 times a month. I get paid on the, I get paid the 5th and the 20th. So I know like my bills between the 5th and the 19th that come out recurring each month is this amount. From the 20th to the 4th is this dollar amount. I have it all, you know, in a spreadsheet for myself. Once I get paid, I set however much comes out automatically in a different checking account. That just comes out for the month of the 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks do the same thing. I take out half my rent for each one and put it in different accounts, so that at the end of the month I have full amount for rent. Pay all that disposable income, whatever I have left over after my bills have been paid and after my rent's been paid. I normally put about, depending on how, like, you know, what the, what my goals are at that time, it's normally about 40% of it goes to savings goals from there, so it can be 10% goes to a vacation fund, 30% goes to an emergency fund, whatever I feel like I need to be prioritizing the most. Whatever I have left over, I take about a little less than half, sometimes right around half, and then allocate that to savings that I need to. And then whatever I have left over, that's my money, that's what I know that I can spend for the next 2 weeks or 15 days or whatever, without, you know, breaking the bank or doing anything unsavory, because I've obviously already paid my bills and paid my future self. Make sense? So. Basically, this is what I just said, but you know, broken up a little bit more. If you are looking to calculate a budget or create a budget for yourself, this is what the pay yourself first budget looks like. First step is you calculate your income, so you try to get an average amount of what you make in a month or whatever your billing cycle is. I know with students, a lot of times with financial aid coming in, it's not on a monthly recurrence. We're gonna talk about in a little bit, if you do get more like lump sums throughout the year, how you can spread that. But generally what you wanna do is try to get roughly what you're going to be using or, you know, bringing in for that month or allocated for that month first. For me, because my paychecks also can fluctuate a little bit, I will look at like my last 6 months worth of income and get like an average, so I know roughly I make X dollars every paycheck, which equates to X every month. From there, you subtract your needs. So you want to go through what your recurring bills are and what your needs are and subtract that from your earnings. Needs don't always necessarily mean like recurring payments, because if you look at some of my recurring payments, like, you know, you've got like Hulu and HBO Max and Netflix and probably a lot of things like that aren't always needs. So if you do find yourself maybe having too much taken out of this category, you can always assess what you are pulling out in this area and reallocate it in the pyramid if you need to. Make some cuts if need be, determine what is actually considered something that you really, really need and need to prioritize in your monthly expenditures. Next, deduct your funds for your saving and investing. So this is just whatever you want to put away, whatever savings goals you have. You can have many different savings goals. You can have many different savings accounts. With Patelco, like under my Patelco membership, I have about 6 different savings accounts. I have my emergency savings. I have my one savings that I just put my rent money into and I pull it out and, you know, write the check when the month comes. I have my vacation, I have 2 vacation savings accounts. I have one for Japan and one for Greece, 2025 and 2026. And then I have my mortgage savings, when hopefully buy a house one day. We'll see. And then what you have after that, you've now paid your bills, you've calculated your income, you know what you're gonna have, you know how much you can afford for all your goals. Last is to enjoy whatever you have left over, yes.
You sound very meticulous, but you initially said that you do a lot of impulse shopping. So how do you transition from that side to be like, you know, this, all these different things?
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk specifically about impulse purchases here in a little bit, but there are some strategies that I have employed for myself when I'm out. That have helped me kind of curb my impulse spending. So there's some rules and different tricks you can use. I will go over them here in a little bit,
But
but.
do you have wear shades when you're going to the grocery, so you just kind of blocking out all the distractions?
Kind of, like, there are some like high trigger stores for me that I know, like, okay, I take this route, I take the perimeters and just go straight to where I'm going because I don't wanna like tempt myself. But that is one of the things, knowing what your triggers are and knowing, you know, what causes you to impulse shop, and then taking steps to kind of work around those. All right, 50-30-20 budget. So this is not a budgeting like strategy or technique that I use myself, but it is kind of like a framework that I like to look at to make sure that whatever budget I have created kind of fits into this category. 50-30-20 basically means that of your monthly income or of your income, 50% of it should go to needs, 20% should go to your savings goals, and 30% should go to your wants. So needs are obviously rent, mortgage, utilities, gas, water, electric, groceries, all that good stuff. Savings can be savings goals you have for yourself. If you ever do start getting into like investing down the road, that can be a saving goal. Debt repayment can also technically be considered like a savings goal, because the quicker you have debt paid off, the less you're gonna be spending in interest. The more you can then, you know, put to your savings. When you pay off debt, you are inherently increasing your net worth, right? Because you're paying off what you owe.
So in terms of that, does Patelco have some kind of program for students? There's a lot of students incurred student.
Mhm.
So is there some kind of program to help you consolidate or something?
Not for student debt with Patelco, things like that, you're probably gonna have to go to either like a larger bank or some other kind of specific student refinance.
Yeah.
Thing. The reason is that like a lot of student debt can be very, very high. And Patelco really, besides like mortgage, we only do like consumer loans, so things that have shorter terms. So you, I mean, if you are, you know, really raking in a lot of money and can afford to pay off your loan in 5, 10 years, whatever it is, we can do like a personal loan consolidation or a general debt consolidation. But it's not gonna be structured like a student loan consolidation, because those normally are longer terms. Yeah. Good question, though. And then last is gonna be your wants, so, you know, the things that you actually want to do. So what I would challenge all of you to do is create your budget. Whenever you get home, map out your income, do your deductions, and then go back and see if it kind of fits into this framework. So if you know, realize that maybe, you know, let's say you're shopping for a car, you're shopping for a new place to live, and you put it in here and it sees that it bumped your needs up to like 70%, that can be a good sign that maybe the car is a little bit outside your price range for the month, or the rent might be too high or whatever it is. So whenever you formulate a budget, it should kind of fit in here. If it's not, assess your needs, see if there's anything in that needs category that maybe isn't quite as much of a need as, you know, it may have initially seemed it was, and then move things around accordingly. Cool. All right. So budgeting with irregular income. And irregular income is when paychecks are your income source for the month is not going to be the exact same every single month. So typically, my income is technically an irregular income because my you know, position is hourly, so sometimes I can have long events that go this long, sometimes I can have nothing. It can fluctuate a little bit, but for the most part, I have a regular income. I get paid the same 2 days every month. My, you know, hours are roughly about 40 hours a week, it's full time, so I can kind of bank on what my monthly amount is gonna be. If you do contract work to where you're, you know, your working is job to job, and it's not always, maybe it's super busy in the summer and less busy in the winter, or vice versa. If you have a small business or something where your main income source can be a little bit more volatile like that, or if your main income source is financial aid, meaning you get maybe not the same amount every year, you get 2 disbursements, you know, one semester, 1, 2, and then it changes the next year. These are all things that irregular income can look like. And when you have an irregular income, it can sometimes be hard because, kind of like what you were saying, my budget right now is pretty meticulous for the month. I have it all set up knowing what I get each month. If that's not the case, it requires a lot more kind of planning ahead and reassessing your budget. But it is possible. So for you guys, financial aid is probably what the biggest income source or biggest thing you're gonna have to budget around is gonna be. Does everybody in here get financial aid, get, you know, financial aid disbursements do you guys do them every semester, or how does that work here? You don't know? Generally speaking, at least for me when I was in school, my financial aid, like refunds or my disbursement that I got for financial aid, I would get. My first like 2 years of school were on quarters and then the semester, so whenever the new semester or quarter reset, I would get whatever that amount was. And I would have to stretch that out throughout, you know, the semester or the quarter until I got my next disbursement. Because even, you know, when I was in school, I was working a part-time job, it wasn't really enough to really sustain like my life. So those financial aid refunds are kind of what I had to use to supplement my main income. So if that is the position that anybody's in, where you're getting like lump sum or irregular payments, number one, I would say you've got to understand your financial aid package. So understand how much you're gonna be getting, what frequency or what kind of occurrence you get it in. So you know the amount you have and however long that has to last. Then you will break down your disbursement into a monthly amount. So if you have $3,000 and it's gonna last you 6 months, that's $500 a month. You know, you gotta know what that amount is gonna be over the period until you get your next disbursement. And then do whatever you have to do to make sure you stick to just that amount coming out. So like what I would do in a situation like this is put that full amount into like a savings account or something at maybe another financial institution that's outside of my main one. And just set up an automatic transfer of the monthly amount into my main checking account. The first of the month or second or whatever it is. So you wanna be disciplined, and make sure that you are allocating just the amount that you set aside for that month. Each month, it does take a lot more discipline and it sucks and it's not fun, but that's kind of the reality of the situation here. Next, you will calculate your total income, so you have your financial aid amount. Now, if you have any side hustles or part-time jobs or anything like that, add that to it, so you get whatever your total monthly income is for the month. And then from that point forward, you just do what we talked about earlier, you create your budget, you subtract your needs, you subtract your savings, whatever you have left over as your spending money, you do with that as you will. I'm not here to judge you with how you spend your spending money, I just want to make sure you have everything else met beforehand. Last two tips here, obviously monitor your spending, make sure you are spending within your means. I always recommend to everybody just checking your online banking balance or your bank account like every night, every day, every other day. For one, it just, if you see the money, the balance going down every day and how much you spend each day, it does kind of make it a little bit more real. Cause I've had days where I, don't check my account balance for, a week, not anymore. I've grown, but when I was younger, I would check my online banking for, a long time. And then my card might get declined, cause I just don't realize that I'm spending as much as I'm spending, until it's gone. So that's one reason. Also, in case of any fraud, in case somebody gets a hold of your card number from an online purchase or an unsecured network or whatever, if you see any transactions that are not yours and you can dispute them or report them as soon as possible, the dispute process is gonna go a lot faster. And then lastly, beware of lump sum behavior. I had to learn this the hard way. My first couple years in college, I remember being like 18 and I was a freshman and I got my first financial aid disbursement, which was probably like $1,100, and it was, I'd never had that much money in my bank account at one time in my life before. And I just was like, oh yeah, I didn't care what it was, if it was not coming back again, I'm like, I'm rich. And then I wasn't after like 2 weeks, and then I had no money for the rest of the semester, and it sucked. So yeah, just beware of the behavior that can come when you get a lump sum. Getting one large amount of money is not really that large amount of money if you have to make it stretch. So just be diligent, disciplined, and resourceful. Okay, this is a little link I found on studentaid.gov. If anybody's interested, scan this QR code that should take you right to the link. They have a whole article that's just creating your budget that is geared towards students, whether you get financial aid or whatever, the plight of the student is. This has some full information on there. For one, it has some student-specific budgeting tips, some tips for how you can categorize your expenses. It gives you some budgeting examples, so we'll show you a full breakdown of, let's say you make this a month or this amount a month, these are your expenses, here's how your budget will look. And then there's also through the articles on there, links to other articles on studentaid.gov. It gives you a link to tips on reducing college costs, how to estimate and compare school costs. There's also a federal student aid estimator on there as well, plus some other things. So if you want some more resources or some more information on budgeting, this QR code will have some good stuff on there. Cool? Cool. Thank you. This is for you. Resisting impulse purchases. So this is a statistic that I like to put in pretty much every presentation I do, whether it's about budgeting or not. It is just some data or statistics on impulse buys. So what the average American spends on impulse buys is, on average, $314 a month, $3,768 a year, or $226,000 in a lifetime. So that is crazy. I don't know if mine was ever that high, but it wasn't low. I've had months where I've spent probably over $200 a month in just, crap. And when I look at that, like when I look at the numbers, $314 a month is my car payment. It's more than my car payment. $37.68, that is well over what my rent is. a year, not a year, no, I get more than that a year, but in a month, I would pay less than that. But that's, I can take probably like 2 decent vacations with that amount of money. So when you really look at how much you spend on impulse buys, and I would also, anybody who wants to be scared of themselves, if you are someone who impulse purchases a lot, look at your last, 2 months of your transaction history and just highlight everything that was an impulse buy. It might be a lot. When you look at how much that number is in comparison to what you could spend that money on, it kind of helps snap you out of it a little bit. So 2 out of 3 impulse buys happen in a bed on a phone. I blame Instagram and social media for that, and those targeted ads, they've gotten me many times as well. And then top impulse buys are food and groceries, so like going to the grocery store without a list and just seeing something and, buying it. I only go to the grocery store now when I have like a menu and a plan prepared for the week of what I'm gonna eat and an exact list of what I have to get. And I kind of have like blinders on besides that. Clothing and household goods are also big impulse buys. So if you find yourself victim to the dreaded impulse buy, number 1, just question yourself before you buy anything. When you're doing it, at least for me, I do, like, I know, because I will jump through like logical leaps to make it make sense to myself. Like, I'll be like, oh, this actually isn't bad because I didn't buy this thing yesterday, which means I technically save that amount of money. Then if I do, if you find yourself doing stuff like that, just stop and really ask yourself, like, is this something that I need? Is this fulfilling any kind of need for me? Did I even have any thoughts of this being something I wanted 10 minutes ago? Ask yourself the questions, and just kind of take a second to be mindful before you shop. Beware of scrolling. So if that is a big trigger for you, if scrolling on social media and those targeted ads are big for you, unfollow accounts if you need to, unsubscribe to company emails if those get you, whatever your triggers are, whatever causes you to do the impulse buying, just try to be aware of them and, try to look around them. Stop the comparisons. So just because you know somebody who maybe has a nice car or nice things and they seem to be living large, that does not mean that they have a lot of money. There are people I knew in college who were like traveling all the time and they were doing all this crazy stuff and going out a lot and going to different countries, and I like couldn't afford it. And I was like, how can they, like, we are in the same, we're peers, we're in the same tax bracket. Like, I don't know how I can't afford this stuff and they can. They are not doing great right now because they're paying for those things, now 10, 15 years later. They don't have as much, disposable income or extra income to create savings goals for themselves because they are paying off debt they went into in school. So just because someone has things does not mean they're doing financially well. All you can worry about is yourself, because yourself is like the only entity that you actually have enough variables for to like make a judgment on. And then last, the 30-day rule. This is the number 1 thing that helped me with impulse buys, because I do this now for essentially any time I want to make a purchase that's outside of, my needs. Or like, if a concert pops up and I know I want to go, I'll just usually buy the ticket if I have the money for it. But if it's something that's not time sensitive, I will always do this. Basically, the 30-day rule is simple. You just wait 30 days. If you see something you want, you can add it to your Amazon cart. You can like take a picture of it if it's at the store, whatever it is. But don't buy it right then. Just wait 30 days to get it.
What if it's on sale? I'm gonna be more, but
So then you go back to your pyramid. And so maybe like if you have a couple, $100 in discretionary or disposable funds for the next 2 weeks and it's on sale and you decide like this fits in whatever I have in my extra fund money, then cool, I will buy it. But then you have to remember, like, that's now money you spent that can't go to anything else.
buy it and then hold on to it, and then you come back to your senses.
Save the receipt, just save the receipt. I'm a big buyer and returner, also on Amazon. That's like, use Amazon sometimes as like a rental service, like I will buy things, especially Halloween costumes and wear, and then just send it back, so you can do that too. I also like if I wanna buy, I wanted to buy like a projector one time, like one of these, but to, like watch movies. And I did not know which one was the best one, so I just bought like 5 of them and tested them all out. And then the one that I wanted, I kept, the other 4, I boxed back to UPS and sent them all back. So, you know, you can do that as well. If you do buy it right away and, you know, maybe you will regret it a couple days later, not saying you would or not, but just hold on to the receipt, you can always return things. But generally speaking, just wait 30 days, because you're gonna find that most of the time, after like 2 or 3 days, you're not even thinking about that thing anymore. And then if maybe a week or 2 has passed, and you're like, oh, I still really want that, you know, air fryer or whatever it is that I saw when I was shopping around. You now have the next 2 weeks to like research and see if you can find a cheaper one or a better one, or whatever it is that actually, you know, meets what you really want from this device, instead of just the first one that you saw when you were shopping. So wait 30 days and be mindful and know your yourself to other people. Those are my 4 tips for you all. All right, so tracking your spending. There are many, many ways to track one's spending and to actually like look at what your budget is and input things as they should be. Number 1, paper statements. This is how my dad still does his budgeting. He has a checkbook and, you know, writes little things in there. The software update popped up again. I don't know if that's something. But the little milky. Beautiful, thank you. Electronic, I do kind of a mixture of, electronic and spreadsheets. I used to do a digital budgeting app, but I don't think the one that I like, it took away. But electronic budgeting is just your online banking and mobile banking. A lot of online banking platforms will have their own budgeting tool built in. Patelco has a budgeting thing on their online banking. But this is just your, you know, digital transaction tracking. Digital budgeting apps. Did anybody ever use Mint in this room? Mint was a great one. It was the best budgeting app that was out there. It got bought by Credit Karma at the beginning of the year. Now it's not anything, but there are other ones out there. You Need a Budget is like a really high level. It uses what's called the $0 budgeting app, which means every single like penny that you have has to be accounted for. Pocket Guard is probably the most similar to Mint. So the way Mint worked is that like you would just link your bank account to it, and as you swipe your card, it would categorize your purchase for you. So it would say like, this amount went to gas, this amount went to entertainment, this went to groceries, this went to eating out, whatever. And then you could at a glance just look at how much you were spending in each category to know what you needed to cut back on. Pocket Guard kind of works the same way. I don't know the ins and outs of it because I have not used it, but if you are looking to get started with like an entry level budgeting app, Pocket Guard is probably one that I'd recommend. Every dollar works like kind of like a spreadsheet or like a digital calculator. You just plug the information in yourself. So if you're a little weary about like linking your bank account somewhere, every dollar is a good one. And then of course, Patelco, we have our own online banking budget tool as well.
Use Google Docs.
One more time.
Google Docs.
Google, oh yeah, the last one. I use an Excel spreadsheet also for myself. So like when I was saying earlier that I have, like I know what my bills are from the 5th, the 19th, and the 20th to the 4th. I have that all in a spreadsheet. So like this date, this amount comes out, this is the itemized amount. This pay period, this comes out, this is the itemized. From there, you know, I have my savings goals input there as well. So I put however much, either it's a dollar amount or a percentage that I want to put in each saving category. You can do the same thing on a Google document if you just want to have more hands-on access. This is what I recommend.
Yeah, this is gonna sound a bit like counter, intuitive, but I heard a lot of people like artificial intelligence to budget their monthly income or whatever.
I cannot speak to that because AI scares me. So like, I don't use that myself. I would imagine they can because they can do like everything else. I think it's probably just, with the way that AI works, it's just kind of like a giant,
Yeah.
you know, search engine that pretends to be a person. So it's probably the same thing. You plug in what your expenses are, what your income is, and say, making a budget, and it'll shoot you out something that looks
Yeah.
similar to this. Yeah. I don't trust AI. Whenever I use it, I'm like, good morning, how are you? Remember that I'm nice to you. All right, track your progress. So when we are budgeting, it's important to also continue to stay on top of your budget, because it's very easy to create a budget once. And then just be like, all right, that's my budget. And then you move, you get a new car, you get a change of income, whatever. You have to remember to kind of periodically review everything and track how your budgeting is going. So number one, review your progress monthly. This is just making sure that every month or every couple months, your budget still is working for your current lifestyle and what your values are. And also, if you are setting any goals, you want to review your progress just to kind of review how your goal, you know, attainment is going. Adjust your plan as necessary. So again, if things are not working out for you, make any tweaks. Hold yourself accountable. So this is the not making excuses for yourself or not trying to rationalize, you know, maybe some poor budgeting or financial decisions that you made. If you did make any, if you had any slip ups, that's all right. We're all human. But just understand that that is what happened, and try to learn from any slip ups that you make. And then celebrate every goal that is reached. So if you do set a goal for yourself and you reach that goal, and you put in the effort, you put the money aside and you got there, that is wonderful, and you deserve to celebrate that for yourself in any way that you want, and that fits in your budget. All right, so we're good. Smart saving, smart planning. SMART is an acronym for, S is specific. This is what exactly you want to achieve, when, and what the conditions and limitations are. So if you're setting a goal for yourself, or you're creating any kind of savings plan, you want to make sure that the goal that you set is a SMART goal. So let's say you say, like, I have the goal that I want to buy a car, and that's your goal. That is a very broad goal. It doesn't really say when you plan on doing it, how much you plan on saving, what kind of car you're looking for. It doesn't really account for any variables, so it makes the goal a lot harder to achieve because the goal is so like broad and abstract. So we want to put those general goals or general ideas through the SMART machine. And again, S is specific. So what exactly do you want to achieve? If you're saying I want to save for a car, maybe instead it's, I want to save for a down payment on, you know, a car for around this year range that I can get a 5-year loan for. You know, make it more specific for what you're actually trying to save for. Next, the M is measurable. So how much or how many? So now you want to do your research and find out what kind of car you want. And if you do, you know, get that car, exactly how much you need to save for that down payment. So instead of saving for a down payment for a car, it's I want to save $5,000 for a down payment for a new vehicle. A is attainable. So how can you accomplish this goal with your current financials? Are there any constraints? So you want to save $5,000, not $5,000 for a down payment for a car. How do you do that with what you currently have? So if you look at your budget and, you know, you are allocating X amount to, you know, one savings goals, maybe you can tweak that amount and put a little bit more towards this, or maybe you can increase your savings contribution to add, you know, to a car down payment savings fund. So maybe you now realize you can afford to put, I don't know, $200 per paycheck into a savings account. For this, you are now saying that you want to save $5,000 for a down payment by saving X amount for this time period. R is going to be relevant. So this is when you want to ask yourself why you want to reach this goal. You might find when you come to this step that you just want to scrap the goal altogether. I've had times where like, Last year, I used the example where like I had some friends who went to outside lands and I really wanted to go to outside lands. And so I was like, I can make this happen. I can save however much to get the 3-day pass, because you know, outside lands is not cheap. And when I really started to think about it, it was like, I don't need to do this. Like I'm too old. I don't need to go over 3 days in, you know, tight spaces and spend, you know, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to do it. So I just decided not to do it altogether. But this is kind of just making sure that the goal that you are setting yourself is a relevant one and one that you actually need for your, you know, health and wellness. And then last is timely. When can I realistically achieve this whole goal? So if you have a certain dollar amount that you want to save, you have set up how much you plan on saving to get to that goal. When is that goal going to be accomplished? And then keep yourself focused on steps, you know, 1 through 4. You do all those, you will hit your goal in the time that you set your goal at. And so now, instead of your goal being, I want to save for a car, your goal has transformed into, I want to save $5,000 for a down payment on a 2015 Toyota Corolla by saving $200 per paycheck for the next, you know, 18 months or whatever it is. The goal now is much, much easier to achieve because you really laid out the steps that you're gonna do it. And it's a specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely goal for yourself. That you have all the tools now to go after. Cool, cool, thank you. All right, so some tips and tricks for saving. Number 1, set a percentage or a dollar amount from each paycheck to automatically save. Automating your savings is the easiest way to do it. Not everyone can do it this way. I myself cannot, because my amount that I save kind of fluctuate each pay period. But I do have a general percentage that I like to net put away in savings. For, you know, a month or for a pay period, I just change the amounts of that amount that I'm putting to my different savings goals. 30-day rule, make yourself wait 30 days before making an impulse purchase. Whatever your thing is, whatever you feel like, gosh, I spend too much money on X category, whether it's impulse buys, whether it's eating out, we all have our thing that we think to ourselves, like, if I didn't spend so much on this, I would have more money. Whatever that is for you, I just challenge you to be a little bit more mindful about that. Maybe look at your past couple months of transaction history and find out how much you actually have spent on that thing in like a dollar amount. And that, you know, reality check might be enough to jolt you into to being a little bit more mindful about those purchases. If you check for you saved section on your receipts, this is a trick I started doing a few years ago when I discovered Grocery Outlet Bargain Market. Every single time at the bottom of your receipt, they will have like, you saved today, you know, $27 or 64, whatever it is. Whatever that number is, I will transfer that over into savings. Because I think, okay, it's not really, I didn't really save that money if I just go and spend it on something else. So anytime you see those you save things, even if it's half of it, just kind of get in the habit of putting money into savings. That's another thing, another takeaway. Whatever you can afford to save, save. Even if it's only $5 per pay period, or, you know, a couple bucks here and there. As long if you get in a saving mindset and like a habit of putting extra little money into savings, it'll be easier to continue those habits when, you know, the income starts increasing and you have more money to save. So don't always look at the dollar amount, just look at the habits that you're forming for yourself. And then last but not least, student discounts. A lot of places will offer discounts with a high school or college ID. These are just a few of them: Spotify, Prime, H&M, Apple, Microsoft. A lot of movie theaters will do like cheaper days if you have a student ID. I still have my student ID from Wright State, like 13, 14 years ago. I keep it in a little box and bring it with me whenever I go anywhere. And, you know, people give me the discount. I look very different, but they don't care. So hang on to your student IDs and milk those discounts as much as you can.
Can I add something? too?
Yes.
So if y'all go downstairs to the front desk, I believe that we have a sheet of all of the different places that you can get a student discount by showing your Peralta ID. So downstairs, front desk.
There you go. There's a lot of them. All right. Automating transfers to your savings account will allow you to save regularly without remembering to need to take action each month. So just some ways to automate your savings if you're able to do this, or if you wanna do this, so you have to kind of set it and forget it. Number one, if you get a direct deposit from your job or from financial aid or whatever, that whole direct deposit doesn't have to all go to one place. You can talk to the payroll department or whoever's issuing you those direct deposits and allocate different buckets that they go to. So my emergency savings account is not with Telco, just because I don't want to see it ever. I don't wanna know what, I just want money to go in there and grow out of sight, out of mind. So I have normally about like 10% of my paycheck I put in like a separate bank account that I don't see. And then the rest, divvy up as I need to. But you can set portions of your direct deposit to go to their actual savings places before you even see that money. And that might make it easier for some people to stay on the budget, because if they're not seeing it, then it's like it never even happened. Automatic bank transfers, this is if you're just, putting an automatic amount within your external, if you're within your bank account, to transfer to your savings or whatever your savings goals are as it hits your checking account. And then the last is roundup savings. Telco offers this now. A lot of other financial institutions offer it as well. Well, where they'll have, like roundup savings features, like if you swipe your debit card for $6.40, it'll round the purchase up to $7 and put the extra 60 cents into a savings account every time you do that. So it kind of helps you save without really thinking about it. Telco has a plus checking account where every time you do that, it also matches at 10% as well. So if you put 60 cents in, Telco puts 6 cents in. And it's just a way to kind of save and have it grow without thinking about it. I don't really use my debit card anymore for spending. I kind of do everything on credit cards nowadays, but I did use this in college and I would save usually about like $300 every, quarter or semester or whatever, which was, very nice. So just some tips and tricks to make your savings more automatic and not think about it. All right. Some general takeaways today, just a little summary. Number one, make sure you remember to check your account history regularly, stay on top of your spending, and just be very mindful about the money that is going in and out of your account. Number two, don't forget that you can use different accounts for different purposes. Having one savings account and one checking account, like for me, in no way would that work. I have too much, in my mind that I can't allocate it in my brain that way. I have to put things in different places. So if you need to do that, I fully recommend it. Open up as many checking and savings accounts as you have for whatever categories and goals you have. Will make it easier to set the goals and watch those goals be met. And also just to stick to your budget. Number three, do not compare your financial situation to anyone else's. Do what is right for your goals and for your life, because that's all you can do. You don't know what other people are doing. So don't compare yourself to a variable or a situation that is unknown. And then remember, if you are not budgeting, you are losing money. If you're not telling your money where to go and actually having a plan and a map for it, it's gonna just go to impulse purchases and to things like that. So budget, tell your money where to go, you guys will be in good shape. All right, these are the upcoming webinars that we have. We have 3 more. This is part 2. So if you guys are around on these dates, I would invite you to come back and join me for these 2 weeks. On the 17th, we are doing the path to excellent credit. So this is going to be about how credit is calculated, how you get a credit score, the different kind of credit scoring models and bureaus, how to have a credit card and make it actually work for you. So you're not paying interest, but instead, getting rewards and getting free stuff. And how to kind of avoid poor credit and bad credit. 4 weeks from now, we have protecting yourself from fraud. That's going to be on Halloween Day, which is fitting. This is going to be just about all the different types of scams that are out there right now. There are a ton of them. So red flags, how to spot them, how to avoid them, how to stay cyber safe. And how to just kind of know what you're looking for with all the different kinds of frauds and scams that are out there. And last, in 6 weeks, is going to be achieving financial freedom. This is very rudimentary, like base level, long-term planning. So it goes over a little bit about like what an IRA is and what like a low, medium, and high risk investment is, and the types of like mortgages that are out there. It's very low level, like we're not gonna get too into the weeds on any of the topics, but it's just to kind of get you guys thinking about some long-term planning. And familiarize yourself with some like terminology and things like that. So that's all I have for you guys today. I think we're at, 1:17, we're good to go. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.